Welcome back. In an attempt to help you to achieve greatness today, we are going to talk about Patanjali's most important lessons, ancient wisdom for inner peace, self-mastery, and a meaningful life. These priceless teachings that have echoed throughout times. We are Unity of Consciousness, where we help you to achieve personal and spiritual growth. There are few individuals in human history whose teachings have quietly shaped the lives of millions for over 2,000 years. Among these timeless teachers stands the great sage Patanjali, a philosopher whose wisdom continues to inspire seekers of truth, peace, and self-discovery across the world. Although Patanjali lived many centuries ago, his message feels remarkably modern. In an age where our attention is constantly pulled in every direction, where anxiety, stress, and uncertainty have become common experiences, his teachings offer something many people are desperately searching for: a calm mind, a peaceful heart, and a purposeful life. Many people associate yoga with physical postures and exercise, yet Patanjali taught that yoga is far more than movement. It is the journey of understanding the mind, mastering our emotions, cultivating wisdom, and discovering the quiet peace that already exists within us. His teachings remind us that true happiness is not found by constantly chasing more possessions, more success, or more approval. Instead, lasting peace begins when we learn to understand ourselves. Today, we will explore Patanjali's most important lessons, uncover the timeless wisdom of his Yoga Sutras, and discover how these ancient teachings can help us navigate the challenges of modern life with greater clarity, compassion, resilience, and inner peace. Perhaps, as millions have discovered before us, the greatest journey we will ever take is not across the world, but within ourselves. Let us start with, who was Patanjali? Unlike many great historical figures, surprisingly little is known with certainty about Patanjali's personal life. Historians generally believe he lived sometime between the 2nd century BCE and the 4th century CE, although the exact dates remain uncertain. What is certain, however, is the extraordinary influence of his work. Patanjali is traditionally credited as the compiler and author of the Yoga Sutras, a collection of nearly 200 concise teachings that became one of the foundational texts of classical yoga philosophy. Rather than teaching yoga merely as physical exercise, Patanjali described it as a complete path for understanding the human mind, reducing suffering, cultivating wisdom, and ultimately discovering profound inner freedom. His work has influenced philosophers, spiritual seekers, psychologists, meditation practitioners, and yoga teachers for centuries. Today, his insights continue to be studied not only in spiritual communities, but also by people interested in mindfulness, emotional resilience, mental well-being, and personal development. Perhaps the greatest reason his teachings have survived for so long is because they speak to something universal. Human nature has not changed. Thousands of years ago, people experienced fear, attachment, anger, jealousy, uncertainty, and distraction. We experience those same struggles today. Patanjali understood that while the world around us constantly changes, the human mind continues to face many of the same challenges. His wisdom offers practical guidance that remains as relevant today as it was over 2,000 years ago. Let's start with the first teachings of Patanjali. Yoga is the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind. This is perhaps Patanjali's most famous teaching and the very heart of the Yoga Sutras. At first glance, these words may seem simple, yet they contain an extraordinary understanding of human experience. Our minds are rarely still. Thoughts constantly compete for our attention. Memories pull us backward. Worries push us into the future. We replay conversations. We imagine problems that have not yet happened. We compare ourselves with others. Our minds become so busy that we forget what peace actually feels like. Patanjali observed that much of human suffering does not come directly from external events. Instead, suffering often arises from the stories our minds continually create about those events. This insight is remarkably consistent with many modern psychological approaches that encourage people to become aware of their thoughts, rather than automatically believing every one of them. For today's audience, this lesson is more important than ever. Our attention is constantly interrupted by notifications, news, social media, endless information, and daily responsibilities. Many people spend very little time experiencing genuine mental silence. Patanjali gently reminds us that peace does not come from controlling the world around us. Peace begins when we learn to understand and gently quiet the activity within our own minds. This does not mean eliminating every thought. It means no longer allowing every thought to control us. As our awareness grows, we begin responding with wisdom instead of reacting with fear. Little by little, we discover something beautiful. Beneath the noise, beneath the worry, beneath the endless thinking, there has always been a place of stillness waiting for us. So, the next time your mind feels overwhelmed, pause for just 1 minute. Take a slow breath. Observe your thoughts without judging them. Remember that you are the observer of your mind, not every thought that passes through it. In that quiet awareness, you begin experiencing the freedom Patanjali described more than 2,000 years ago. The next teachings of Patanjali will be: practice becomes firmly grounded when continued with devotion over a long period. One of the greatest misunderstandings about personal growth is believing that transformation happens overnight. We often admire successful people without seeing the thousands of small, consistent actions that brought them there. Patanjali teaches a different way of thinking. Real change is built through steady practice, not perfection, practice. Whether we are learning meditation, improving our health, strengthening relationships, developing patience, or pursuing our dreams, lasting transformation comes through consistent effort. Small actions repeated daily become powerful habits. Powerful habits shape character. Character shapes destiny. Today's world often celebrates instant results. We want quick success, immediate happiness, rapid change. Yet nature itself teaches patience. A tree grows one season at a time. A river shapes mountains through gentle persistence. The sunrise never rushes, yet it always arrives. Patanjali reminds us that our own growth follows the same rhythm. Some days we will feel inspired. Other days we may struggle. What matters is not perfection, but returning to the practice again and again and again. Every small step strengthens the next. The best thing to do is ask yourself each morning, what one small action today brings me closer to the person I wish to become? Trust that your consistent effort, no matter how small, is quietly transforming your future. Probably one of the most important teachings of all the sages inducing Patanjali is, freedom comes through letting go of attachment. One of Patanjali's most profound teachings is the principle of vairagya, often translated as non-attachment or letting go. At first, this idea can be misunderstood. It does not mean that we stop loving our families, abandon our dreams, or become indifferent to life. Quite the opposite. Patanjali teaches us that we suffer not because we love, but because we cling. We become attached to outcomes. We become attached to how we think life should unfold. We become attached to success, possessions, approval, and certainty. When reality changes, as it always does, we experience disappointment, frustration, or fear. Patanjali gently reminds us that life itself is movement. Everything changes. The seasons change, our circumstances change, even our thoughts and emotions change from moment to moment. The more tightly we hold on to what cannot remain the same, the more difficult life becomes. Yet when we learn to appreciate each moment without trying to control it, we discover a remarkable sense of freedom. This teaching is especially valuable today. Modern society often encourages us to measure our worth by achievements, financial success, social status, or the opinions of others. Patanjali invites us to anchor our happiness somewhere far more stable, within ourselves. When our peace depends only on external circumstances, it will always feel uncertain. But when peace comes from within, we remain steady, even while life continues to change. So, ask yourself, what am I holding on to that no longer brings me peace? Sometimes the greatest act of courage is not holding on. It is trusting enough to let go. The controversial teaching of compassion and love for friendship, promoted by Patanjali. Cultivate friendship toward the happy, compassion for those who suffer, joy in the virtuous, and equanimity toward negativity. Among Patanjali's most beautiful teachings is his guidance on how to relate to other people. Human relationships shape much of our emotional lives. They can bring immense joy, but they can also become sources of conflict, jealousy, resentment, and disappointment. Patanjali observed that our reactions to others often reveal more about ourselves than about them. When someone succeeds, do we celebrate with them or compare ourselves? When someone suffers, do we turn away or offer compassion? When we encounter negativity, do we absorb it or remain peaceful? These questions remain deeply relevant today. In a world where comparison is constant and disagreements can quickly become divisive, Patanjali offers a wiser response. Celebrate another person's happiness without envy. Meet suffering with kindness rather than judgment. Allow goodness to inspire rather than intimidate you. And when confronted with hostility or negativity, choose calm instead of retaliation. This does not mean ignoring injustice or avoiding difficult conversations. It means refusing to allow negativity to take root within your own heart. Compassion is not weakness. It is emotional maturity. It protects both the person who receives it and the person who offers it. And it is true that every encounter today gives you a choice. Will you react from fear or respond with wisdom? The peace you offer others often becomes the peace you experience within yourself. This teaching is for everyone, including people who want success in business. Self-discipline is the bridge between intention and transformation. Patanjali understood that inspiration alone is never enough. Many people begin a journey of growth with enthusiasm, yet when challenges arise, motivation fades. This is where discipline becomes essential. Discipline is not punishment. It is an act of self-respect. It is the quiet decision to continue moving toward your highest values, even on the days when progress feels slow. Whether we are cultivating patience, strengthening our health, developing a meditation practice, or learning a new skill, meaningful change comes through steady commitment. Every small choice matters. One mindful breath, one kind word, one moment of forgiveness, one decision to begin again. Over time, these seemingly ordinary actions become extraordinary because they shape who we become. Today's world often rewards immediate gratification. Patanjali reminds us that lasting fulfillment is rarely immediate. The strongest trees grow slowly. The deepest wisdom develops gradually. The most peaceful minds are cultivated through daily practice. Transformation is not found in dramatic moments. It is built quietly through consistency. Therefore, rather than asking, "How far do I still have to go?" ask instead, "What loving step can I take today?" Small, faithful steps often carry us farther than occasional giant leaps. This teaching is so important for delving into ourselves. Know yourself beyond the changing mind. Perhaps Patanjali's greatest invitation is to discover who we truly are beneath our thoughts, emotions, achievements, and identities. Throughout life, we wear many labels: student, parent, friend, professional, success, failure, These roles are part of our experience, but they are not the whole of who we are. Patanjali teaches that beneath the constantly changing activity of the mind exists a deeper awareness, peaceful, steady, and untouched by life's circumstances. Modern life encourages us to define ourselves by what we accomplish or possess. But when these external things change, our identity can feel uncertain. Patanjali offers another perspective. Our true nature is not diminished by setbacks, nor is it inflated by success. It remains whole. When we learn to observe our thoughts without becoming trapped by them, we begin to experience a profound inner freedom. This is not an escape from life. It is a deeper participation in life, guided by wisdom rather than fear. As we become less identified with every passing emotion, we discover greater resilience, greater clarity, and greater compassion for ourselves and for others. Therefore, spend a quiet moment each day simply observing your breath. Notice your thoughts without chasing them. In that peaceful awareness, you may begin to recognize something extraordinary. You are far more than the thoughts that pass through your mind. You are the quiet awareness that gently witnesses them all. The road to success in life is self-study is the beginning of true wisdom. One of Patanjali's central teachings is svadhyaya, the practice of self-study. While it certainly includes studying sacred texts and seeking knowledge, its deeper meaning is learning to understand ourselves. Throughout our lives, we spend countless hours learning about the world around us. We study science, history, languages, careers, and technology. Yet many people spend very little time understanding the person they live with every moment of every day, themselves. Patanjali believed that self-awareness is one of the greatest forms of wisdom. Why do certain situations trigger anger? Why do we hold on to old fears? Why do some relationships bring us peace while others leave us exhausted? These questions invite us inward. Without self-awareness, we often repeat the same patterns, believing that our circumstances are the problem when, in truth, many of our struggles begin with unconscious habits of thought. Self-study is not about judging ourselves. It is about observing ourselves with honesty and compassion. The more deeply we understand our thoughts, emotions, and motivations, the more freedom we gain to choose differently. Today's world encourages constant distraction. Patanjali encourages reflection. Modern life asks us to look outward. Patanjali reminds us to look within, because lasting wisdom begins with knowing ourselves. So, right now, take a few quiet moments each day to ask yourself, what am I learning about myself today? The answers may slowly reveal the person you were always meant to become. The next important teaching of Patanjali is surrender to a higher wisdom. One of the most comforting teachings found within the Yoga Sutras is the principle known as Shvara Pranidhana, the practice of surrendering to a higher wisdom. For many, this higher wisdom is God. For others, it is divine intelligence, universal consciousness, source, or the infinite light that lovingly guides all life. Whatever language speaks to your heart, the lesson remains the same. We are not meant to carry every burden alone. So much of our suffering comes from trying to control everything. We want certainty. We want guarantees. We want life to unfold exactly according to our plans. Yet life has its own rhythm, its own timing, its own wisdom. Patanjali teaches that surrender is not giving up. It is letting go of the illusion that we must control every outcome. When we surrender with trust, we remain fully committed to our efforts while releasing unnecessary anxiety about the results. This creates an extraordinary inner freedom. Instead of fighting against life, we begin flowing with it. Instead of resisting change, we begin trusting the journey. Instead of living in constant fear, we begin living in quiet faith. So today, ask yourself gently, what would change if I trusted life a little more today? Perhaps peace begins not when every question has been answered, but when we learn to trust the one who already knows the way. This teaching is very profound, as it needs to be in truer light. The 8 limbs of yoga are a guide for living, not simply for exercise. When many people hear the word yoga, they immediately picture physical postures performed on a mat. Also, many people from other faiths experience great confusion. Instead of learning, they jump in conclusions that this is from another faith. The advice here is learn more and judge less. Yet Patanjali describes something far greater regarding yoga. His 8-fold path, known as Ashtanga Yoga, is a complete guide for living a balanced, ethical, and meaningful life. It begins with how we treat others, non-violence, truthfulness, honesty, generosity, self-control. It continues with how we care for ourselves through discipline, gratitude, simplicity, and self-reflection. Only then does Patanjali speak of physical postures. Beyond that come breath awareness, concentration, meditation, and ultimately profound inner peace. This sequence is deeply meaningful. It reminds us that true transformation begins with character. Physical well-being is valuable, but inner peace requires something even deeper. It requires integrity, compassion, self-awareness, patience, and consistent practice. Perhaps one of Patanjali's greatest contributions is reminding humanity that personal growth is never limited to one part of life. It embraces the whole person: mind, body, heart, character, spirit. When these work together, life begins to feel beautifully balanced. So today, learn one beautiful, non-judgmental lesson. Rather than asking, "How can I become more successful?" ask instead, "How can I become a wiser, kinder, and more peaceful human being?" Success often follows those who first cultivate character. The last lesson from Patanjali for today is inner peace is the greatest achievement. If there is one lesson that quietly connects all of Patanjali's teachings, it is this. The greatest victory is not over other people. It is over our own restless mind. The greatest wealth is not measured by possessions. It is measured by peace. The greatest freedom is not found in changing the world around us. It is discovered by transforming the world within us. Throughout history, people have searched endlessly for happiness. They have pursued wealth, recognition, power, status. Yet countless people have reached these goals only to discover that lasting fulfillment still feels just beyond reach. Patanjali understood why. External success can improve our circumstances, but only inner wisdom can transform our experience of life. When the mind becomes peaceful, gratitude grows naturally. Relationships become healthier, compassion becomes easier, fear loses its grip. Joy becomes less dependent upon circumstances. This is not because life becomes perfect. It is because we learn to meet life with greater wisdom. The peace Patanjali describes is available to everyone, not because life is free from challenges, but because the heart has learned how to remain steady through them. We can learn that. Every day offers a choice. We can continue chasing peace somewhere outside ourselves, or we can begin discovering that it has quietly lived within us all along. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson Patanjali leaves for humanity. Let's conclude the teachings of Patanjali with one summation: the quiet revolution within. As we come to the end of our journey through Patanjali's timeless wisdom, we are left with a remarkable realization. Although these teachings were written more than 2,000 years ago, they speak directly to the challenges of modern life. Our world has changed dramatically. Technology has transformed the way we communicate. Cities have grown. Knowledge has expanded beyond anything Patanjali could have imagined. Yet the human heart remains much the same. We still search for happiness. We still struggle with fear, anxiety, attachment, comparison, disappointment, and uncertainty. We still long for peace. And perhaps that is why Patanjali's wisdom continues to resonate across cultures and generations. He reminds us that true transformation does not begin by changing the world around us. It begins by understanding the world within us. Every lesson we have explored points toward this simple but profound truth. When we calm the restless mind, we begin to see clearly. When we practice patiently, we become stronger. When we release unhealthy attachments, we become freer. When we cultivate compassion, we soften our hearts. When we develop discipline, we grow in character. When we study ourselves honestly, we gain wisdom. When we trust a higher purpose, we discover courage. And when we remember our true nature, we begin to experience the peace that has always lived quietly within us. Patanjali never promised a life without challenges. Instead, he offered something far more valuable. He showed us how to meet life's challenges with clarity instead of confusion, with wisdom instead of fear, with compassion instead of judgment, with presence instead of constant distraction. This may be his greatest gift to humanity. His teachings remind us that happiness is not something we chase. It is something we uncover. It has never been hidden from us. It has simply been covered by the endless noise of the mind. Imagine for a moment what our world might look like if more people embrace these lessons. Imagine choosing understanding instead of anger, patience instead of haste, listening instead of judging, compassion instead of resentment. Imagine beginning each morning with gratitude instead of worry, facing each challenge with steadiness rather than fear, treating yourself with the same kindness you so willingly offer others. This quiet transformation begins with a single decision, the decision to become more aware, more intentional, more compassionate, more present. That is the path Patanjali invites us to walk. Not a path of perfection, but a path of continual growth. One peaceful breath at a time, one thoughtful choice at a time, one act of kindness at a time. Perhaps the greatest lesson we can carry forward from Patanjali is this: the peace we seek is not waiting somewhere in the future. It is not found in greater wealth, greater recognition, or greater possessions. It begins in this very moment, with this very breath, with the simple willingness to become still. As the mind becomes quieter, wisdom begins to speak. As the heart becomes calmer, compassion begins to grow. As awareness deepens, life itself becomes richer, not because the world has changed, but because we have. May Patanjali's timeless wisdom continue to inspire you to live with greater awareness, deeper kindness, unwavering integrity, and peaceful confidence. May you find the courage to let go of what no longer serves you. May you trust the quiet unfolding of your own journey. May you cultivate a mind that is calm, a heart that is compassionate, and a spirit that remains steady through every season of life. And may you always remember, the greatest journey you will ever take is not measured by the distance you travel across the world, but by the peace you discover within yourself. Thank you for sharing this journey with me today. We are Unity of Consciousness, where we help you to achieve personal and spiritual growth. Until next time, may your mind be peaceful, your heart be open, and your life be filled with wisdom, purpose, and quiet joy. Namaste.